Hello, this is Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. The purpose of this video is to walk through the first hands-on test of the Spring 2025 Web Technologies course. First, I want to mention that hands-on test, which are also called HOTS, is 40% of your grade. So it is important to do well on them. For these type of assignments, as an instructor, I will only answer questions regarding the directions, and I won't be helping the students with coding related questions. So you have to figure that out on your own. Now, if you've been keeping up with your labs and your homework assignments, you should do well on these hands-on tests. Okay. The biggest thing is just really following the directions. Okay. Also, as far as grading is concerned, with the labs and the homework, I'm a little more lenient on things. If you're, doing things pretty close, and that, I give credit for that. But the hands-on test is really you need to carefully follow the directions and do the work according to them. And not that it has to be perfect, but it's pretty close, right? Just don't do something completely outside of what it's asking you to do. And really, the kind of the purpose of that is, in the real world at an employer, you're giving usually requirements, right? In school we call them rubrics, right? But in the real world, with an employer, you're going to have requirements documents, and you're going to have to follow these requirement documents, right? And so, a lot of times, you may not that you won't have input into things and be able to use some creativity here and there, but you have to really follow those requirement documents. So it's important to be able to follow them and provide the code that's correct for those different requirements, right? So for this hands-on test, this is the very first hands-on test. It's 100 points. Okay. And so you can use your book, notes, labs, the internet, any resource you need, okay, to work on this. All CSS must be placed in an external style sheet, unless otherwise stated. But I don't believe it's otherwise stated in this one. Each number must be completed entirely to get points, no partial credit. Okay. So the important thing is, please, make sure you don't miss the easy stuff, right? So make sure you put the files in the correct directory. So just by putting it in the hands-on test HTML Hot 1 folder in your local repository, that's 5 points in itself. Don't miss those. Okay, don't miss things like that. Create five-page website that contains the following pages. You get 1 point just for creating the pages, right? So make sure you're using this exact lettering, right? This exact names: index, resume, portfolio, coursework, and contact. Okay. So you're going to hyperlink these pages like we've done. We've already done this in exercises. So did this, I believe, in the chapter 2 exercise, actually, didn't we? So we're going to use relative links. So remember what relative links are. Basically, it's within the file structure itself, within your file structure, within your project that you have all your files in. One thing I did notice, there were some people that used, like, they would have since we're using live server, it has the local host, and they were using that as a link. You really don't want to do that for different reasons, but one is if someone doesn't, of the local host, they also include ports. So if your local host is not set up and that, you're not going to be able to access that. So you really just need to, and that's called an absolute path. When you use the whole URL with the local host, that's a absolute path, right? So you want to use relative paths. So here also, you want to have these on each page. So each page should have all the links to all these five, including its own page itself. And also the link should be found at the bottom of the content. Okay. So remember that bottom of the content. In a minute here, I'm going to show you. Just review a little bit, show you a few things here, including a couple other things here. So all links should be contained in the appropriate semantic tags. Okay. All important content that you have on each page should be contained in the appropriate semantic structural tag. All right. So let's go take a look at a couple things here. So when we were saying that the link should be at the bottom, what's a good thing to probably put that in? You don't have what kind of tags would be good to use? Obviously, at the header, your header's towards the top. Kind of a hint here, right? What's kind of at the bottom that you would want to use maybe to put all those links in, right? And so, and then as far as the content, there's semantic tags and there's non-semantic tags. So a div tag and a semantic tag, what it does is kind of has a purpose to define something, right? It gives you a hint on what this is about, right? Like a paragraph's a semantic tag. It's telling you it's a paragraph of text. A header, nav, sections, the footer, right? These are all the main. These are all semantic tags. It gives you, defines something about what is going to be in that, what that content's about. Now, tags that are not semantic are like div or span. Those are not semantic tags, right? So keep that in mind. Let's see here. So we talked about this link's going to be at the bottom of the content. It kind of gave you a hint on what you might want to put that in. All links, like we said, should contain the appropriate semantic tag. When we say appropriate, I don't want to get too carried away. You might, some of that's, subjective, right? But, make sure that you're using a semantic tag, right? You know what the semantic tags are. You kind of say, well, what's this appropriate for? Okay. Doesn't have to be perfect. You might like what you would think, might be a little different than what someone else's, but, a paragraph's a paragraph. So you got a paragraph of text, you know what to use there, right? You know what to use for headings, right? And headings are also semantic tags, right? Okay, so let's go here. Number 4, the index page should use a heading display to display home. Okay, and this is basically on each one of these pages. You should have a heading tag at the top that displays the correct name. And for the index page, indexes are always used. I know. These other ones you pretty much are more descriptive, right? Resume, portfolio. So your heading's going to be those. But in a lot of web servers and so forth use the default page, the basic entry page into a website is called the index page. So that's why, that's what we'll be using. The index is usually going to be your main page, right? Or home page, main, home, right? Your home page. So back to the headings though. So we're going to have a heading for each one of these, right? I do want to go over that a little bit, just kind of a little bit review. So we know the H1 tag is the biggest one, all the way to the H6 tag. And one thing I don't know if I mentioned before, it's important for the structure of a page to make sure you're using the appropriate one. So you have to think, and there's a hierarchy. It goes from H1 down to H6, right? Now you may not reach that. Depends on how much content on you have on your page, and or how things are sectioned. But one thing you really don't want to do is use you're just using a bunch of H3 tags in your thing. You really the very first tag should be your main page title that's in there. It should always be an H1 tag. You always want to start with an H1 tag. And then from there, If you're going to have another heading that's going to be smaller than your main page title, you want that to be H2. You really should follow. That's the appropriate thing. That's what the search engine optimization, accessibility screen readers, they count on that being like that. Okay. So it's really important to follow that hierarchy, starting with an H1 tag. But, you may, like I said, you may not, you may only have an H1 tag only or H1 tag, H2 tag, but, you may not get all the way to an H6 tag. Okay. So, and, I also wanted to point out that, you don't want to use a heading tag just to define a size of text somewhere in your thing. You use your CSS for text, like a paragraph of text or something. You always use your CSS to define, the size of text there, right? Okay, so on the index page, you're going to have the home and paragraph tags to introduce yourself. Now, as far as the content, this exercise, this hands-on test, is really more about the HTML tags and structuring things. It's not really about content. You're not going, but try to get a little bit of content on everything, right? It doesn't have to be something substantial. Don't get stuck on spending, all kinds of time on your content. This exercise, hands-on test, is more about just making sure you're using the right tags and everything is working and so forth. Try to get a little bit of content on there, but it's not the most important thing, okay, for this. So then on your resume page, you're going to have a heading called resume, and use unordered list. Make sure you follow this unordered list to bullet items on the resume. Okay. Now you could also have a couple little different sections if you want in there. Maybe on your resume, you want to have work experience, and then have some things under work experience. And then maybe you have another section where you have skills, right? And have something under that, right? And you don't have to spend time creating something too complicated at this point. Like I said, just some basic content, a little bit of content here, as far as maybe some work experience and skills, etc. Right? That's an idea there, right? Like I said, you're not getting really graded on content, but make sure you get something in there. Okay. On the portfolio page, use a heading to display portfolio and paragraph tags to explain that this is the page that you will include examples of websites you've worked on for both schools and recreation. Obviously, if you haven't done much yet, there's not a lot to put in there, but, in the future, this is something that you can add to. So, later on in this semester, we'll actually be creating a web portfolio. And you can use, this is one thing you can use as your basic one. You may rewrite everything from scratch, but you may use this as your starting point for your web portfolio. Your web portfolio we are going to get that out on GitHub Pages, where it will actually be available as a public website out there on GitHub Pages. And we'll talk about that later when we get farther along in this course. So let's see. So like I'm saying, you can add things. You'll be adding things to these other sections, right? For now, just if you have something to add, you can add something. If you don't, that's okay. Okay. Then on the coursework page, right? Coursework, you can go ahead. At least if this is your first course, is your first class in the program, you can list this course, right? If you've already completed the C# course, you can add that, right? You could also add maybe some other coursework that you did online, right? You might have done some other courses online or in high school, right? So you can add those as well. And then let's see. So you want to do an absolute link to Rankin on that as well. On your contact page, use a heading to display contact me. So like I said, on each page, you'll have one heading, right? One page heading. And so that one should be that, we start at H1 on down, right? So, Then add an external style sheet. So make sure it's your last name.css and then link the style sheet to your page. Use a color scheme generator. Let's go to or there to determine a color layout for your page. So you use one color for a background and one color for font. Okay, keep it pretty simple here, right? So here's a color generator. So this is kind of an existing assignment. I kind of just added a couple little things here and there. I also added this existing palettes. So let's just take a quick look at that. So this is a color generator. This is an Adobe color generator. So as you can see here, you can actually move this around. As you can see, as you're moving this around, it will change all these colors below, and all these are hex colors that you can take and you can copy these different hex colors, right? So you determine what you want to do as far as color for this for your page. So this is just asking for two, one for a background and one for a text color, right? Another option is that other link, and that's this color palette. And I really like this to give you ideas, and you actually can choose different different types, right? They have some different types here that you can choose from as well. This is kind of interesting. You got a Burger King here, so that's kind of interesting. So like you can click on these different ones. Maybe you can see different beige ones, blue ones, etc. Right? And obviously for, this is going to come in much more handy as we go through the course and you're going to use multiple colors. For this assignment, we're keeping it pretty basic. But if you find something you like here, you can click on it. And then here's your different hex or your RGB, which we discussed both the different types of colors there, hex, RGB, right? So you just grab that, right? And then actually here's additional, if you want to use HSL or HSV, right? That's fine as well. But you can just copy this, right? You can just copy that. So that should be helpful for that. Evenly distribute the white space on left and right sides of your page with a wrapper div and a margin property. This is pretty much the same thing we did with the Chapter 3 assignment, right? We did that, so you just kind of go look at that. Make sure you use an HTML comment on at least one area of your code for documentation purposes. So, just put a comment on your code explaining what you're doing, maybe something to do with the links or whatever, just a little comment with a little message there, okay? So go ahead and research. If you don't know how to do a comment, you can go ahead and research and figure that out again, right? Number 16. Go ahead and validate your CSS with the validator. And these are some other areas that you don't want to lose points on these, right? You get 5 points just for doing that correctly. Don't miss out on these free points. Just by not doing that, you're going to miss out on 5 points. Same thing here with the HTML. Validate each page. You got 5 pages, so it's 5 points here, all right? So, and then upload your completed project to GitHub. That's 10 points there. So just even that, 10, 15, that's 20 points just on these 3 things. So you want to make sure you don't miss out. You do all of this, right? If you don't miss this, it's going to really impact your grade. So compared to what we've done, I think this shouldn't be too difficult for anyone. So I think you'd be fine with this. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much.